Hey guys, it's Vince. Today I want to discuss a solution to a problem that's plagued virtually anybody purchasing a CNC chassis to perform an American retrofit utilizing a Gecko G540. Typically what ends up happening, the scenario goes like this: you get your new chassis in, you're assembling it, everything is looking good. You get to the point where you realize it's time to install your new motor cables that are pre-made, whether they're pre-molded ends or pre-soldered on ends, and you get to your cable chain assembly and you realize that the cable chain doesn't dismantle, allowing you to pass your motor cable freely through it. And I have some guys out there now that are saying, well, you know what, it's easy to just assemble the motor cable inside the chain by soldering on the ends and doing all the work. Well, that's great, but that's not practical, because in the real world, what typically will end up happening at one point or another, you may need to service that cable, and then what do? Okay, so this is where this solution comes into play. Now, that being said, there's another problem that's plagued the industry virtually ever, and that's the fact that you're not always able to find a motor cable to suit your desired length. This system will completely eliminate both of those problems. You guys are well aware that I've offered solderless connectors now for about 3 years. I've sold so many of them I've lost complete count. This is the secondary phase of a solderless connector, and what you have before you here, it's pretty self-explanatory. They come in both female and male DB9 connectors, and you can see inside you've got the terminal block. It's completely labeled. It's completely labeled ground 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, very, very simple to see how this assembly works. You do have a stress relief. You can see that the screws there are self-tapping. They are countersunk. For a professional grade assembly, the plastic that you use is very heavy duty, will easily hold 18/4 shielded cable, which is what I recommend. And best of all, the assembly itself is labeled, taking away all the guesswork. For your ground, of course, you're going to use the drain wire from your shielding on your 18/4 cable, and then 6, 7, 8, 9 is simply used to once again turn this cable into a straight pass-through cable. Okay, 5 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is optional for you to use. Again, you can use 1 and 5 for a resistor if you're not using solderless connectors. If you are using solderless connectors, you have a choice. Now it changes the entire ball game, because you can either put the resistor in the motor cable itself or put it on the solderless connector. I have a lot of guys that are looking at, which alternative they want to use. This now opens up a plethora of choices to allow for a totally custom system based on what your applications are. And that was what I was really looking at doing. You can see this is the bare block. I'm going to show you now one with a demo of an 18/4 shielded cable attached to it. You can see how the drain attaches to the ground, and then you have your 1, 2, 3, 4 wires connected. Now, in order to make a straight through cable, because that term is used a lot and I don't know if everybody understands that term, a straight through cable is simply matching one end to the other. So if we were doing a female cable here and we're doing a male here, we would just match the connectors, meaning whatever number blue wire is on, blue wire would be on the female end, and then so on and so forth. It's a very, very simple process, and it'll give you a straight through motor connector, and it's never been easier now to assemble a custom made motor cable on the fly. I mean, you can use virtually any size cable you want up to 18 gauge. 18 gauge, guys, is a tight fit. I'm going to tell you right now, I utilize it on all my pro grade cables, and you have to know how to work with it to use it, but I'll tell you what, once you use it, you don't want to use anything else. It's just optimal in conductivity. It allows for longer wire lengths in the sense that you're not going to have the drop off and fade that you'd have with smaller gauge cables. So again, if you're doing it right and you're using it properly, one of the key points when using this, I do recommend tinning the ends before you put it in the terminal block. I also recommend removing maybe 1 to 3 of the conductors. That makes the actual pliability of the conductors easier. And of course, once you tin those conductors, the remaining ones anyways, you're going to notice that the solder is going to fill up, the girth of the wire is going to change, it's going to increase, and the conductivity will be just as good as with those other 3 conductors. It's very simple. Again, this assembly has a multitude of uses. I don't care if you're doing home switches, if you decide to do them. I have some guys that are adamant about limit switches. You could use this to do virtually anything. I mean, these are just amazing assemblies, super simple to use. I mean, you can see here if you wanted to open up one, this one has a female. There's the wire again connected. You can close this up in seconds for servicing. It does not get any easier than this. I am going to sell this in a kit. I'm going to sell it as a complete kit. You guys can pick the length of the cable. I will have it predetermined in a predetermined length. I typically go 10 foot. If we want to go 20, 30 feet, that's now an option. I don't recommend going past probably 30 feet because, again, you are really stretching the length of the voltage run. So even with 18.4, you probably 30 foot would be your max, but I don't see most guys going past that anyways. So again, limitation past 20. We can easily do past 20 now. We could do oddball wires. Let's say you only needed an 8-foot motor cable. This is your best friend. I mean, and best of all, and trust me when I tell you this, because I've had so many clients come back to me and say, you know what, I built my motor cables inside the cable chain, and now I've got to change a cable or I've got to service a unit, and I can't get the cable out, and they end up cutting and destroying all their work, and then they have to redo it again. This is not only a time saver, it's a money saver in the long run. I promise you there's nothing like this. No one's offering this kit. I've thought long and hard on how we can solve the issue, and between my solderless connectors and now this assembly, you have the best of every world. You will be able to assemble motor cables custom on the fly, completely toolless in the sense that you will not need solder anymore, which has been, you know, plaguing the industry. You got to pull out the soldering gun, you got to deal with all that, small tiny connectors. This is tight in here, I'm not going to lie to you. It's definitely, you know, it's a tight assembly, but it's by far easier than dealing with solder connectors. I mean, if you have trouble soldering, these are your best friends. If you're looking for simplicity, these are your best friends. And if you're looking for serviceability, there's no replacing these. Again, same principle as my solderless connectors. And I think you guys now get the gist of where we're going, and I hope this video has been helpful, and I hope you guys, if you do have any questions, don't be afraid to message me. You know, I'm always looking for your opinions. I'm looking for anything we can do to make things better, but overall, I think this is going to solve a lot of headaches, especially when you get that new system in. You've been waiting to get in, and you want to do it right, and you've got the best of everything. You got your 18.4, you got your connectors. This makes it all too simple. So once again, if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to message me, either through my eBay store or through YouTube. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Take care.